So today, we're going to dive into one of the most mysterious and honestly influential thinkers of the 20th century, René Guénon. Think of his work as this incredible, super clear map of universal spiritual wisdom, pulling from the deepest sources of human tradition. But here's the twist. Behind all that, there was this massive personal secret, one that completely reframes everything he ever wrote. So let's start digging in. So right off the bat, here's the mystery we're going to try and crack. Guénon spent his entire life explaining these universal truths that he saw in all authentic spiritual paths. And yet, the actual path he himself followed, he kept that incredibly private. And it was a secret that honestly floored a lot of his followers when he passed away. Okay, so you really see the paradox when you put these two things side by side. On one hand, you've got his public work. In his books, he's pulling a lot from Hinduism and Taoism to lay out these universal truths. He seemed to be, floating above any single faith. But the private reality? Totally different. He was a deeply committed, initiated Muslim, part of a specific Sufi order. When people found this out, they were stunned. So the question everyone had was, wait, how can the guy who synthesized all traditions be so locked into just one? To get that, we first have to understand the problem he was trying to fix. See, the thing about Guénon is, he wasn't just some armchair philosopher. He saw himself more like a doctor, and he was diagnosing what he thought was a terminal illness right in the heart of the modern West. His entire life's work was basically a response to this crisis, a crisis he called the reign of quantity in a profane world. And this quote, man, it just nails his diagnosis. He looked at modern life with its constant noise and focus on just stuff, and saw it as a trap. It wasn't just a distraction. He believed it was basically designed to make our minds smaller, to cause this intellectual atrophy, where we can't even imagine there's something more. All right, let's break down this key idea, the profane view. Now, for him, profane isn't about good activities versus bad activities. It's not about going to a rock concert versus going to church. No, it's a broken way of seeing everything. It's that lens that looks at a forest and only sees lumber, or looks at a mountain and only sees a pile of rocks. He said it comes from spiritual degeneration, where the world just becomes solid and meaningless, no longer see-through to the sacred. And this is where you can really see what's at stake. On one side, you've got the traditional world he's all about, a world where quality and intellect rule, and the sacred is just part of everyday life. And on the other side, our modern world, totally obsessed with numbers, with quantity, with frantic action. A world that basically builds a wall between the sacred and the everyday, locking spirituality in a tiny box, if it even admits it exists at all. So the big question is, how do you get out of that prison? And that leads us right to Guénon's solution. And get this, it's not about trying to argue with the modern world. It's about finding a whole different way out, a path he called initiation. This is really the core question of everything he wrote. If the modern world is this locked room, how do you find the key? How do you actually open the door to what's beyond? His answer is this one really powerful idea. And that idea is initiation. And we need to be super clear here. This is not about just joining some club or reading a bunch of books. For him, initiation is a real, actual spiritual event. It's a transmission of a kind of spiritual influence that awakens something inside you. And the key thing is, it has to come through a living, authentic tradition with an unbroken chain. It's an active path, not a passive one. So he actually breaks down how this works. Step 1, you have to join a real, legitimate tradition. That's affiliation. Step 2 is what he calls virtual initiation. This is where the seed is planted. It's a potential just sitting there. Then comes the hard part. Step 3, effective realization. This is all on you. It's the inner work you have to do to make that seed grow into actual, real knowledge. And to really sharpen this point, he draws this really important line between initiation and what we usually call mysticism. See, the mystic is more passive. They're kind of waiting for whatever comes their way. It's like seeing the sun's reflection in the water. It's beautiful, for sure, but it's still a reflection. The initiate, on the other hand, is active. They are going after the source directly. They want to see the sun itself, not just its reflection. The goal isn't just to be with the divine, it's to become one with it, to see with the eyes of the sun. And this brings us right back to our original mystery. Okay, so if Guénon's whole thing was about telling people to find an authentic path, which one did he find? How did he solve this problem for himself? This is where it all comes together, and we solve that paradox we started with. The answer? It was Islam. More specifically, it was the esoteric heart of Islam, what's known as Sufism, or Tasawwuf. He was initiated into a very old and respected lineage, the Shadili order. And listen, this wasn't some random thing. He was deliberately plugging himself into this incredibly powerful spiritual and intellectual current. His own teacher, Sheikh Elish el-Kabir, traced his lineage all the way back to the legendary Ibn Arabi, the great master. This is why one of his followers said his work had a sure Islamic origin. He wasn't just making things up. He was drawing from a very deep, very old well. And this quote from his own teacher, wow. This is basically the key that unlocks the whole mystery. What Guénon realized is that the deepest truths are universal. For example, he wrote a whole book called The Symbolism of the Cross, inspired by his sheikh. But it wasn't really a Christian book. It was about a universal metaphysical principle, a doctrine about how the one becomes many, which he found explained with incredible clarity inside Islamic esotericism. Okay, so let's tie this all together, because this is the main takeaway. His choice of Islam wasn't a contradiction of his universalism, it was the proof of it. It was the action. See, for Guénon, you can't just float around and call yourself a universalist. That's meaningless. You have to pick a real, specific, orthodox path to even have a hope of reaching the universal. Islam was his key to unlock the universal door. But his mission, using what he learned, was to turn back to the West and say, hey, you guys have one of these traditions too? It's time to find it again. So, where does this all lead? What's the ultimate goal of this entire journey? Guénon uses this really powerful, ancient symbol to explain it all. I want you to picture a spinning wheel. Most of us, in our modern lives, we're living out on the rim, on the edge. It's all motion, chaos, constant change, just being pulled in every direction. The whole point of the spiritual path is to move from that crazy, chaotic rim to the still center, the hub. That hub is where everything is calm. It's the place of unity and perfect balance. And here's the cool part. It's motionless, but it's the source of all the motion. And that still point right in the dead center. Guénon, borrowing a term from Taoism, calls it the invariable middle. It's like the axis of our own being, the one part of us that isn't touched by all the drama and chaos spinning around us. And to get to that point, to live from that center, that's what it means to become what he called a true man, a human who has realized their fullest potential. So, where do you find this center? Is it out there somewhere? Well, this sacred text from Islam, one that Guénon quoted all the time, gives us the answer. It says that the infinite, the reality that is too big for the heavens and the earth, can fit in one place, the heart of a believing servant. And for Guénon, the heart isn't about feelings or emotions. It's the organ of pure knowledge, of direct intuition. It is the hub of the wheel, and it's inside of us. It's our personal gateway to the infinite. And that really leaves us with one last big question. Guénon's entire work is a massive challenge to how we live today. He's asking us to think about whether the most important journey isn't out there in the world, but inward. It's a journey from the chaos on the rim of our lives to that quiet, powerful, still center within. So I'll leave you with this. In a world that's all about constant motion, what is your invariable middle?